to Deep Sleep Stories. If these stories have helped you through restless nights, please leave a review. Reviews are what help this podcast grow, reach more listeners, and stay alive. Without them, even something meaningful can slowly disappear. So if this show has brought you comfort, that small act truly helps keep it going. Now, settle in, and let's begin.
Welcome, dear traveler, to Deep Sleep Stories. Tonight you are invited to drift into a quiet afternoon in rainy Florence, where a sheltered balcony, soft blankets, and the music of falling rain become the doorway into rest. Let your body settle as though the whole world has grown gentle around you. Feel the surface beneath you holding your weight with patience and kindness. There is nothing to solve now, nothing to finish, nothing that needs to be carried any farther tonight. Take a slow breath in and imagine the air is cool and clean, washed by rain as it moves through narrow stone streets and over terracotta rooftops. Let that breath soften your shoulders. Let your hands grow loose. Let your thoughts become like raindrops sliding down glass, appearing for a moment, then quietly passing away. Florence waits beneath a silver sky. The afternoon is wrapped in mist and the hush of weather. Somewhere church bells have already rung and faded, leaving only their memory in the damp air. Old walls glow warm beneath the rain. Window shutters rest half open. A balcony overlooks a small courtyard where green leaves tremble beneath falling water. You do not need to do anything but listen, breathe, and allow the story to move gently on without asking anything from you. And as the rain continues its patient song, the listener may begin to fade from the center of the tale, becoming peaceful and still, while another traveler enters the quiet streets of Florence. She had arrived in the city on a morning softened by rain, when the stones of Florence shone like polished river pebbles, and every color seemed deeper than it had been in sunlight. Her name was Elena, and she'd come with a small leather bag, a wool scarf, and the pleasant tiredness that follows a long journey. She did not hurry after she stepped from the station. There was nowhere urgent to be. Her room would be waiting, and the city, older than hurry, would wait as well. The rain was light then, not falling so much as floating down through the air. It touched the shoulders of passers-by gathered in the seams between the stones and darkened the hems of coats. Umbrellas moved slowly along the street like small drifting boats. Some were black, some soft blue, some the deep red of wine and shadow. The people beneath them spoke quietly, as if the weather had lowered the volume of the entire city. Elena walked beneath the eaves where she could, following the curve of streets that were not quite straight, streets that seemed to remember every footstep laid upon them across many centuries. She passed a bakery where warm breath from the ovens fogged the windows. Inside, golden loaves rested in patient rows, and a woman in an apron lifted trays with steady hands. The scent of bread slipped into the rain and mingled with coffee, wet stone, orange peel, and the faint mineral sweetness of the river, somewhere beyond the buildings. She crossed a narrow lane and paused where a tiny flower shop stood open to the damp afternoon. Buckets of pale roses, violet irises, and branches of silvery eucalyptus leaned under the striped awning. Rain tapped gently above them. A gray cat sat just inside the doorway, blinking with deep, ceremonial calm, as if he'd been appointed guardian of all quiet things. Elena smiled at him, and the cat closed his eyes in return, granting her safe passage. Her lodging was in an old building with green shutters and a heavy door that opened into a dim entrance hall, smelling faintly of waxed wood and lavender soap. The staircase curled upward, each stone step worn in the center by generations of feet. Somewhere above, a radio played a soft aria, thin and distant, the voice rising and dissolving into the murmur of rain outside. The woman who gave Elena the key was kind and small, with silver hair pinned at the back of her head. She spoke in a soft mixture of Italian and careful English, pointing out the kettle, the extra blankets, the cupboard with tea, and finally the balcony. "This is best in the rain," she said, smiling as though sharing a family secret. The room itself was simple and welcoming. A bed dressed in white cotton stood against the wall. A small wooden table held a lamp with a cream-colored shade. There was a wardrobe with a mirrored door, a blue ceramic bowl on the dresser, and a framed print of cypress trees beneath a wide Tuscan sky. But the balcony was what made the room feel as if it had been waiting just for Elena. Beyond the tall glass doors, the balcony rested under a shallow awning, sheltered enough from the rain but close enough to hear and feel it. 2 wrought iron chairs stood there, their curved backs beaded with moisture. Between them was a little round table. A potted lemon tree grew in one corner, its leaves glossy and dark, its small fruit bright as lanterns in the gray afternoon. Below, a courtyard opened in quiet layers. Stone paving, moss in the cracks, a fountain with no grand purpose except to catch rain, and a climbing vine that reached from wall to wall like green handwriting. Elena set down her bag and stood for a while just inside the doors, watching the rain fall through the open square of the courtyard. It did not rush. It descended with grace in threads and silver beads, touching leaves, roof tiles, ledges, and the patient backs of statues. Above the courtyard, other balconies held their own small lives. A clay pot of basil, a folded striped towel, a row of laundry drawn safely under shelter, a candle in a window, a chair with a woven seat. She had imagined walking through museums that afternoon, standing beneath painted ceilings, crossing bridges, following the curve of the Arno beneath a soft umbrella. Perhaps she would still do these things later. But just then, with the room warm behind her and the rain making a cradle of sound outside, Elena felt the journey catch up with her. It arrived not as exhaustion, but as a gentle heaviness. Her limbs grew quiet. Her thoughts slowed. The city did not ask her to explore it. It seemed instead to invite her to rest within it. She made tea in a small white cup, choosing chamomile from the cupboard because it smelled of fields after summer heat. While the water warmed, she unpacked only what she needed: a soft pair of socks, a book with a blue cover, a folded shawl she had brought from home. The kettle whispered, then sighed. Steam rose, fragrant and pale. She carried the tea to the balcony, nudged one of the chairs farther under the awning, and spread the shawl across it. The air outside was cool enough to make the cup pleasant in her hands. The rain had deepened since her arrival, and now it fell steadily, creating little crowns in the fountain basin below. It ran from the roof edges in thin streams and dripped from the lemon leaves in slow, bright intervals. Florence in the rain felt less like a city to be visited and more like a memory being carefully preserved. The distant dome of the cathedral was hidden by the buildings around the courtyard, yet Elena could feel its presence somewhere beyond the rooftops, broad and ancient under the clouds. Bells drifted from an unseen tower, softened by rain until they seemed to come not from metal, but from the air itself. She sat, wrapped the shawl around her shoulders, and opened her book. The first page was pleasant, the second even more so, but the words soon began to loosen and float. The rain was reading something older. Its language was made of tapping, flowing, falling, gathering. It spoke on terracotta and stone, on leaf and iron, on the awning just above her head. It spoke in patterns that never repeated exactly, but never startled either. The sound was constant and endlessly gentle, like a hand smoothing linen. A small breeze moved through the courtyard. It carried the scent of wet earth from the pots below, and something sweet from a kitchen window, where someone, somewhere, was baking with cinnamon or perhaps vanilla. The tea warmed Elena from the inside, and she let the cup rest against her palms, breathing in its mild, golden fragrance. Across the courtyard, an old man stepped onto a neighboring balcony with a watering can in his hand. He looked up at the rain, then down at the can, and laughed softly to himself. He set the can aside and adjusted a row of herbs instead, pinching a leaf here, turning a pot there. His movements were unhurried, almost musical. After a little while he noticed Elena and inclined his head in greeting. She smiled back. Neither of them spoke. In the rain, even silence felt companionable. The old man disappeared inside. A curtain stirred. Somewhere below, a door opened and closed. The gray cat from the flower shop, or perhaps a cousin of his, crossed the far edge of the courtyard with delicate paws, pausing beneath an arch to shake rain from one ear. He looked offended for a moment, then continued on with dignity, vanishing behind a cluster of ferns. Elena's eyes grew heavy. She did not decide to sleep. The afternoon decided for her, but with such courtesy that it felt like her own choice. She placed the cup on the table and leaned back in the chair. The shawl was soft beneath her cheek. The chair, though made of iron, held her gently because she had folded herself into it just so. Her book rested open on her lap, unread but not abandoned. A nap on a balcony in rainy Florence seemed suddenly not only reasonable but inevitable, as if every lane she had followed through the city had led her to this quiet seat. Her breathing slowed. The rain continued. The courtyard blurred at its edges. The lemon tree became a green shelter beside her. The fountain below murmured in a voice that seemed to come from very far away and very close at the same time. Elena felt herself drifting, not away from Florence, but deeper into it. She did not lose the city as she slept. She entered the softer Florence that lives beneath the waking one. In her dream, the rain had polished the whole city until it glowed. She walked, though her body remained safely curled on the balcony. Dream Elena moved through narrow streets without needing a map. The stones beneath her feet reflected the sky in muted silver. Lanterns glowed though it was still afternoon, and their light spread over the wet walls in warm halos. Every window seemed to hold a quiet room. Every doorway seemed to breathe out the scent of old wood, coffee, and orange blossoms. There were no crowds in the dream, only a few gentle figures moving in the distance, each carrying an umbrella that seemed to catch not rain, but stars. A baker brushed flour from his hands and set a fresh loaf on the sill to cool. A young woman in a green coat carried a basket of figs covered with a cloth. A child in yellow boots stood beneath a drain pipe, watching water pour into a puddle with total and peaceful fascination. Elena walked onward, feeling no cold, no tiredness. The rain touched her hair without wetting it. It made a soft veil around everything. The buildings leaned kindly above the street, their shutters half closed like sleepy eyelids. Soon she came to the Arno. The river was wide and slow beneath the rain, reflecting the pale gold and rose of old facades. Bridges crossed it with the calm assurance of things that have stood through many seasons. The Ponte Vecchio rested over the water like a row of small houses dreaming. Its shuttered shops seemed to sleep, each one holding within it the memory of jewels, gold chains, silver rings, and polished stones that had shone under brighter skies. Elena paused at the railing and listened. The rain on the river was different from the rain in the courtyard. It was softer, flatter, more spacious. It did not tap or drip. It whispered over the surface in countless tiny touches, each one vanishing into the current. From the river rose a faint glow, not bright enough to startle, only enough to suggest that the water remembered the sun even on rainy days. The glow drifted beneath the bridge, gathering around the arches, and for a moment Elena thought she saw small boats moving there. Not real boats, perhaps, but little dream boats made of folded paper, each carrying a candle. They floated in a slow procession, not downstream exactly, but along some secret path the river kept for dreams. Elena watched them pass. One carried a sprig of rosemary, another carried a tiny painted door, another carried what looked like a single lemon leaf, glossy and green. The smallest boat carried a blue feather. A voice nearby said, "The city sends its thoughts downriver when it rains." Elena turned and saw a woman standing beside her, wrapped in a cloak the color of dove wings. She was neither young nor old, or perhaps she was both in the way dreams allow. Her hair was silver black, her eyes warm, and in her hand she held an umbrella painted with clouds. "Where do they go?" Elena asked, because in dreams, It is easy to ask the right question. To the sea, said the woman, and then, when they are light enough, they rise as mist and return. Elena nodded, understanding without effort. Together they watched the paper boats drift beneath the bridge. The woman did not ask where Elena was from or why she had come. She simply stood beside her as if they had agreed long ago to meet at the river during a gentle rain. After a while, the woman tilted her cloud-painted umbrella and said, "There is a garden above the city that is especially quiet today." Elena followed. They walked upward through streets that curled and rose, past walls softened by moss and gates with sleeping vines. The rain became finer as they climbed. Florence opened below them in layers of red roofs, pale towers, green hills, and mist. The city looked like something held carefully in the palm of the earth. At the top of the hill was a garden Elena had never seen and yet recognized at once. Cypress trees stood tall and dark, their tips disappearing into low cloud. Gravel paths curved between hedges, and raindrops clung to every leaf. There were statues along the way, but in the dream they did not seem cold. They seemed merely patient, listening to the weather. The woman in the dove-colored cloak led Elena to a stone bench beneath an arbor. Wisteria hung there, not in full bloom, but holding the memory of purple flowers in its twisting branches. The bench overlooked the city, though the view was softened by rain until Florence became a watercolor of itself. "Sit," the woman said. Elena sat. The bench was warmer than stone should have been. The woman leaned the umbrella against the arbor and took from her cloak a small packet wrapped in cloth. Inside were sugared almonds, smooth and pale, each one shaped like a tiny moon. She placed a few in Elena's palm. "For sweetness after travel," she said. Elena tasted one. It was delicate and faintly floral, like almond blossoms and distant celebrations. She felt again the tiredness of arriving, the long train, the damp streets, the weight of her bag, and then she felt all of it dissolve. Not forgotten, but softened. Every journey, she thought, needed a place where it could loosen its laces and sit quietly by the rain. Below, a bell rang, then another answered, then a third farther off. The sounds rose through the damp air and gathered in the garden. They did not mark time in the usual way. They seemed instead to bless the hour, to say that this gray afternoon was enough, exactly as it was. When Elena looked back, the woman in the dove-colored cloak had become less distinct, as if made partly of mist, yet her smile remained clear. "Will I remember this garden?" Elena asked. "Not all at once," said the woman. "But sometimes when rain falls and you are very still, you may feel it." The mist thickened. The garden faded. Elena drifted deeper. Back on the balcony, her hand had slipped from the book on her lap. The rain cooled the air but did not reach her. The shawl rose and fell gently with her breathing. In the courtyard below, the fountain brimmed and overflowed in a tiny silver thread that found its way between the stones. The lemon tree beside her trembled whenever a drop fell from the awning to one of its leaves. Her dream changed, becoming slower still. Now she was inside an old library where the windows stood open to the rain. The room was long and quiet, lined with shelves from floor to ceiling. The books were bound in brown leather, faded red, soft green, and deep blue. Their titles were written in gold that had dulled to the color of honey in shadow. Rain tapped on the outer ledges. Somewhere in the library, a clock ticked, though it did not seem interested in reaching any particular hour. Lamps glowed on reading tables. The air smelled of paper, wax, wool, and the faint trace of roses. Elena walked between the shelves, trailing her fingertips near the spines without touching them. She understood that the books here were not ordinary books. They were quiet moments kept safe. Each volume held a rested afternoon, a remembered kindness, a window left open during rain, the hush after music, a letter read slowly, a cup warmed between both hands. A small book slid outward from a shelf as she passed. Its cover was the color of the sky just before evening. Elena opened it, and inside there were no words, only the sound of rain on a balcony. The sound rose from the pages and surrounded her, familiar and near. She turned another page and saw, not drawn, but somehow present, the courtyard below her room, the fountain, the vine, the neighboring balconies, the old man's herbs, the dignified cat, the lemon tree standing close beside her sleeping body. She saw herself resting there, and the sight was peaceful rather than strange. How tender a person looked when asleep, she thought. How trusting. How young the face became when no expression was required. She felt a wave of gratitude for the sleeping Elena, for the tired traveler who had chosen rest instead of ambition, who had accepted the afternoon as it offered itself. The library seemed to approve. Its shelves gave a soft wooden sigh. At a table near the window sat the gray cat, now wearing an expression of scholarly importance. A pair of small round spectacles rested on his nose, though he seemed to have no need of them. He looked up from a book and regarded Elena. "Rain is best read slowly," he said. "Yes," Elena replied. The cat turned a page with one paw. Outside the library window, Florence glimmered in the rain. Water traced the carved edges of buildings. Pigeons tucked themselves under cornices. A bicycle leaned against a wall, its basket holding a bouquet wrapped in brown paper. The world continued, but quietly, as if careful not to disturb anyone sleeping. Elena set the blue book back on the shelf. The library lamps dimmed a little, not going out, only becoming warmer and lower. The cat closed his book. The clock slowed until each tick felt separated by a soft field of silence. Then the library became the room, and the room became the balcony, and the balcony became the sound of rain. When Elena woke, she did not wake quickly. First she noticed warmth, the shawl around her shoulders, the lingering warmth of sleep in her chest, then the scent of chamomile, cooled now in the cup on the little table, then the rain, still falling, but more lightly than before. Her eyes opened to a softened world. The courtyard was dimmer. Afternoon had begun its slow journey toward evening. The sky overhead was pale gray with a faint glow behind it, as if the sun were somewhere beyond the clouds, resting. The fountain below made a small, continuous sound. A few lights had appeared in the windows across the way. In one kitchen, someone moved behind a curtain, and the shadow of their arm lifted and lowered, perhaps stirring a pot. Elena remained still, enjoying the delicate border between sleep and waking. For a moment she remembered the river, the paper boats, the woman with the cloud-painted umbrella, the garden above the city, the library of quiet moments, and the cat reading by the window. Then the memories became soft around the edges, as dream memories do. They did not vanish. They simply folded themselves somewhere inside her, where they could be found later in feeling rather than thought. A drop fell from the awning onto a lemon leaf. The leaf dipped, released the water, and rose again. Elena smiled. She picked up her cup and drank the cooled tea. It tasted mild and earthy. Her book had slipped partly closed, saving her place without needing a bookmark. She pressed her palm to the page, as if thanking it for waiting. Across the courtyard, the old man returned to his balcony. This time he carried a small plate and a fork. He looked at the sky, at the rain, at Elena, and raised the fork in greeting, as though making a toast to the weather. Elena lifted her cup. They smiled at one another, two strangers sharing the same sheltered afternoon. The rain thinned to a mist. For a little while the city became almost silent. Not entirely silent, because cities breathe even when they rest. There was the hush of tires on wet streets beyond the courtyard, a low voice from a room below, the clink of dishes, the flutter of wings as pigeons shifted under the roof line. But all of it was distant and softened. Nothing pressed forward. Elena stood slowly, folding the shawl around her. Her body felt different after the nap, as if some careful hand had unwound a thread from around her heart. She was still a traveler, still far from home, still in a city full of places she had not yet seen. But now there was no need to chase them. Florence had already opened a door for her, not through a museum or a piazza or a famous view, but through rain, a balcony, and sleep. She stepped back inside the room and turned on the small lamp. Its golden light gathered quietly in the corners. The glass doors remained open, letting the cool air and rain scent drift in. She changed into dry socks and brushed her hair. In the mirror, her face looked calm, cheeks faintly marked from resting against the shawl. Evening settled gradually. It did not arrive all at once. It came as lamps in windows, as deeper blue in the shadows, as the smell of soup from nearby kitchens, as the sound of a scooter passing through a wet lane and fading away. It came as a bell far off, as a brighter gleam on the stones, as the first clear notes of a violin played somewhere under shelter. Elena wrapped her scarf around her neck and decided to go out, only as far as the nearest cafe. the one she had noticed on her way in, with fogged windows and a green door. She took the umbrella from beside the wardrobe and descended the worn stone staircase. Each step felt familiar now, though she had climbed them only once before. The entrance hall was dim and peaceful. Outside, the rain had become a fine mist, barely falling. The street shone under the lamps. Reflections trembled in the puddles. Elena walked slowly, keeping close to the walls, not because she feared the rain, but because the edges of streets in Florence seemed to hold secrets. At the cafe, the windows were warm with light. Inside, a few people sat at small tables, speaking softly. The man behind the counter greeted her as if she had been expected. She ordered a bowl of ribollita and a small piece of pear cake. She sat near the window and watched the rain mark the glass while the soup warmed her hands and then her whole body. There was no need to read, no need to plan. She simply ate and listened. Cups touched saucers. The espresso machine breathed steam. Someone laughed quietly in the back. A woman in a dark coat shook droplets from her umbrella and was welcomed by name. The world seemed woven from small kindnesses. After the soup and the cake, Elena walked back through the mist. The rain had nearly stopped, but the city still held its shine. Above the narrow street, a few clouds had parted, revealing a deep blue sky behind them. Not clear, not bright, but open enough for evening to begin dreaming of stars. When she returned to her room, the balcony waited. She left the lamp on and stepped outside once more. The chair still held the shape of her rest. The lemon tree smelled fresh and green. Somewhere high above, water dripped from a roof at long intervals, each drop falling after a pause, so gentle it seemed the night itself was breathing. Elena leaned on the balcony rail and looked down into the courtyard. The fountain was full. The stones gleamed. In a window across the way, the old man's herbs stood in a row, dark and fragrant from the rain. The gray cat appeared on the courtyard wall, paused to look up at her, and then continued into shadow, his tail held high. The city had not changed, and yet it had become hers in a small, quiet way. Not hers to possess, never that. Hers to remember, hers to carry as a feeling. The coolness of damp air, the warm cup, the silver rain, the sleep that came without being asked, the dream of paper boats on the Arno, the hidden garden, the library where quiet moments were kept safe. She stood there until her eyelids grew heavy again. Then she closed the balcony doors most of the way, leaving only a narrow opening for the sound of dripping water and night air. She prepared for bed with slow movements, folding her clothes, setting the book on the table, placing the cup near the sink. The room glowed softly around her. When she slipped beneath the covers, the sheets were cool at first, then warm. Rain whispered from rooftops and leaves. The city outside settled into its old, patient sleep. Elena turned onto her side and let her breathing match the gentle rhythm beyond the balcony. There was no need now to follow the rest of the night. Only the softness remained. The balcony grew quiet. The lemon leaves shone in the dark. The fountain murmured below. And Florence, washed clean by rain, held the sleeping traveler in its ancient, tender arms. Now the story, too, begins to rest. The streets fade into shadow. The warm windows grow dim. The rain becomes a whisper, then a memory, then a soft place for the mind to land. Let the body be heavy. Let the breath be slow. Let every thought drift away like a paper boat on a silver river. Nothing is needed now. Nothing is unfinished here. There is only the quiet room, the sheltered balcony, the rain-cooled air, and the deep kindness of sleep. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.